Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future stories. Today's story is about a woman named Alana and how a single thread of suspicion unraveled the entire tapestry of her life. Alana had always believed their love was architectural, a structure built on a solid foundation of trust and shared history. At 38, a respected architect in Seattle, she thought what she and her wife, Maya, had was permanent, a landmark in their own lives. They had a beautiful craftsman home in Queen Anne, a shared love for rainy Sunday mornings with the New York Times crossword, and 12 years of memories that felt as solid as the steel and concrete she worked with every day. Until that Tuesday in October when everything changed. The day she learned that the foundation of her life was nothing but sand, and the tide was coming in fast. Alana was a woman who understood blueprints, who could see a building's final form from a few lines on a page. She believed her marriage was the same. She knew its floor plan, its load-bearing walls, its every hidden corner. That was her first mistake. The warning signs had been there, small hairline fractures she'd willfully ignored. Maya, usually so present, had become an expert in the art of being physically present but mentally elsewhere. Her phone, once a casual accessory, was now an extension of her hand, angled away from Alana with a practiced subtlety that was, in itself, an alarm bell. Nights grew longer, filled with excuses about marketing deadlines and demanding clients that sounded plausible on the surface, but felt hollow underneath. Then came the name, dropped into conversation with a forced casualness, Chloe. An old friend from college, apparently back in town, a freelance designer Maya was mentoring. The word friend was repeated often, a shield against unspoken questions. Alana had even met her once, a brief, awkward encounter at a coffee shop where Chloe had been all bright, nervous energy and Maya had been uncharacteristically stiff, a caricature of a helpful mentor. Alana had dismissed her own unease as jealousy, a petty emotion she was above. She was Dr. Alana Hayes, a woman who designed skyscrapers. She did not have time for insecurity. The rationalizations became a full-time job. Maya's sudden interest in a new fitness class that ended at 10 p.m.? She was just prioritizing her health. The new, expensive perfume that didn't smell like the familiar sandalwood and bergamot Alana loved? A gift from a client. The therapy speak that had begun to infest their conversations was the most insidious change. Maya spoke of needing to find her own narrative and the importance of platonic intimacy outside their marriage. It's about personal growth, Lana, she'd said one evening, her eyes distant as she stared at the television. We can't be everything to each other. That's not healthy. It's codependent. Alana, who had always considered their deep connection a source of strength, felt a chill. It was as if Maya was preemptively building a defense for a crime she had yet to be accused of. The final crack appeared on a Thursday. Maya had a major work gala, a black tie event she'd been talking about for weeks. She left in a shimmer of silk and that new, unfamiliar perfume, kissing Alana goodbye with a fleeting coolness. An hour later, Alana received a text from a friend, a colleague of Maya's. So sorry the fundraiser was postponed. Bummer about the gas leak at the venue. You two have a free night now, I guess. The phone felt like a block of ice in Alana's hand. A gas leak. Postponed. A simple, verifiable lie. There was no gala. There was no work event. There was only Maya, somewhere in the city, dressed in her finest for someone else. For the first time, Alana stopped rationalizing and started thinking. She pulled on her coat, her movements slow and deliberate, the architect in her mind already calculating stress points and structural failures. She knew where Maya's car was. They had a tracking app for emergencies, an innocuous piece of tech that was about to become an instrument of devastation. She opened the app. A small blue dot pulsed steadily, not at a downtown event venue, but in a parking lot in Fremont, a trendy neighborhood filled with bars and restaurants they rarely visited together. The drive across the Aurora Bridge was a surreal journey through a city that suddenly felt alien. The familiar Seattle skyline, a view that usually filled Alana with a sense of pride and belonging, now seemed to mock her, its glittering lights indifferent to the collapse of her world. Every traffic light felt like a test of her resolve, a chance to turn back and live in the comfortable ignorance she'd curated for months. But the lie about the gala had been a wrecking ball, and she had to see the rubble for herself. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, trapped thing. She parked a block away from the pulsing blue dot on her phone, the October air sharp and cold against her hot cheeks. She saw Maya's Tesla immediately, parked near a dimly lit bar called the Alchemist's Nook. Through the large front window, under the warm glow of Edison bulbs, she saw them. Maya was sitting across a small table from a woman with vibrant red hair. Chloe. They weren't talking like old friends catching up. They were leaning in close, their world shrunk to the space between them. Maya was laughing, a genuine, unburdened laugh Alana hadn't heard in months. It was a laugh that belonged to her, to their life, to their home. And then, as if in slow motion, Alana watched Maya reach across the table and take Chloe's hand. Her thumb stroked the back of it, a gesture of casual, profound intimacy. Alana felt the air leave her lungs, a physical punch to her solar plexus. She should have left. She should have gotten in her car and driven away with this poisoned knowledge. But she was frozen, a spectator at her own execution. She watched as they stood up to leave, watched as Maya leaned in and kissed Chloe, a soft, lingering kiss under the amber streetlights that was not a mistake, not a moment of drunken weakness, but a confirmation. It was real. All of it. The lies, the distance, the new perfume. It all snapped into place with the horrifying clarity of a perfectly solved puzzle. Alana didn't feel rage, not yet. She felt a profound, bottomless cold. A void where her heart used to be. She watched them walk away, hand in hand, before turning and walking back to her own car. The drive home was silent, the city lights blurring into streaks of meaningless color. She was no longer a wife. She was a scientist who had just confirmed her hypothesis, and now it was time to document the evidence. Back in the quiet, sterile emptiness of their home, the home she had helped design, the coldness in her veins solidified into something hard and sharp, resolve. The grief would come later. Right now, she needed proof. Maya was a marketing executive. She was an expert at spinning narratives, at controlling the story. Alana knew that without irrefutable evidence, she would be gaslit, blamed, and manipulated into a confusing fog of, "It's complicated." She would not allow that. She walked into their shared home office, the room where they had built their respective careers side by side, and sat down at her iMac. Her hands were perfectly steady. She thought about Maya's phone, her laptop, but those would be locked down. Then she remembered the cloud. Their shared family cloud account, set up years ago to automatically back up photos and documents from all their devices. A digital attic of their shared life, meant for convenience and sentimentality. A place Maya, in her arrogance, had clearly forgotten. Alana logged in. It took her less than a minute to find the folder. It wasn't even hidden. It was simply labeled C. Inside was a meticulously organized chronicle of her own betrayal. There were hundreds of screenshots of text messages, conversations stretching back 8 months. Messages filled with declarations of love, with disparaging comments about Alana, her focus on her career, her predictable nature, her lack of spontaneity. There were plans for a future together, discussions about when Maya would leave Alana, how they would break the news. They were planning a trip to Bali, a trip Maya had claimed was a solo wellness retreat she needed for her mental health. Then came the photos. Dozens of them. Weekends away at quaint coastal towns Alana thought Maya was visiting for work conferences. Dinners at restaurants they had on their special occasion list. Selfies of Maya and Chloe in bed, tangled in sheets Alana recognized from their own guest room. Each image was a dagger, twisting deeper into the wound. The sheer volume, the calculated deception, the long-term planning, it was breathtaking. This wasn't a fling. This was a parallel life. Maya hadn't just cheated. She had been auditioning Alana's replacement while still living in her house, eating her food, and sleeping in her bed. Alana methodically downloaded everything to an external hard drive, her movements precise and economical. She created a backup, then a backup of the backup. As the last file transferred, she leaned back in her chair. The architect was gone. The strategist had taken her place. She had the blueprints of her wife's deception. Now it was time for demolition. Maya came home just after midnight, humming softly to herself, radiating a smug, satisfied energy that made Alana's stomach clench. She walked into the living room where Alana was sitting in the dark, a single lamp casting long shadows across the floor. "Lana, you're still up," Maya said, her voice bright and careless. She tossed her keys into the ceramic bowl by the door, the familiar clatter a sound of jarring normalcy. The gala was such a bore. You didn't miss anything. Alana didn't move. She just watched her wife, this stranger who wore Maya's face. "How was the fundraiser, Maya?" she asked, her voice unnervingly calm. Maya faltered for a second, the lie catching in her throat. "Oh, you know. Long speeches, bad chicken. The usual." She started to walk towards the kitchen. "I'm exhausted. I'm just going to grab some water and head up to bed." "There was no fundraiser," Alana said, the words dropping like stones into the silent room. Maya froze, her back to Alana. "What are you talking about?" "Of course there was. I spoke to Sarah. She told me it was postponed." "A gas leak." Silence. Maya slowly turned around, her face a mask of confusion, but her eyes were darting around the room, assessing, calculating her next move. "Oh, right. That? It was a whole thing. They moved it to a different venue last minute, a smaller space at the Four Seasons. It was so disorganized, I didn't have a chance to call. The lie was fluid, practiced. A month ago, Alana might have believed it." "Stop," Alana said, her voice cutting through the air. "Just stop talking." She picked up the iPad from the coffee table, its screen dark. With a swipe of her finger, she illuminated it. The image that filled the screen was a photo from the C folder. It was a selfie of Maya and Chloe, taken that very evening at the Alchemist's Nook, Chloe's head on Maya's shoulder, both of them beaming. Maya's face went white. The color drained from her cheeks as if a plug had been pulled. She stared at the image, her mouth opening and closing silently. The confident marketing executive vanished, replaced by a cornered, panicked animal. "It's not what you think," she stammered, the classic, pathetic first line of defense. "Isn't it?" Alana replied, her voice lethally quiet. "Then please tell me what I should think. Because what I think is that you've been having an affair with your friend, Chloe, for at least 8 months. What I think is that you've lied to me every single day. What I think is that our entire marriage has become a stage for your sickening performance." "Lana, I can explain," Maya pleaded, taking a step forward. "She's just a friend. We had too much to drink tonight, and things got out of hand. It was a mistake. It meant nothing." Alana let out a short, bitter laugh. "A mistake? For 8 months? Was the trip you were planning to Bali also a mistake? Are the hundreds of text messages where you tell her you love her and can't wait to leave me just a big misunderstanding?" Maya's eyes widened in horror. She understood now. Alana didn't just suspect, she knew everything. The blame shifting began on cue. "I've been so unhappy, Alana. You're never here, you're always working. I've been so lonely. I needed someone to talk to, someone who saw me. Did you need to sleep with her to feel seen?" Alana shot back, her voice rising for the first time. "Don't you dare try to pin your choices on me. I built a life with you. You set it on fire and now you want to complain about the temperature of the flames. You are a coward, Maya. You didn't have the decency to end this before you started building a new life on the wreckage of ours." Maya collapsed onto the couch, her face crumpling. The desperate apology started, a torrent of promises. "I'm so sorry, baby, please. I'll end it. I'll never speak to her again. We can go to counseling. We can fix this. I love you. I only love you." Alana stood up. She looked down at the weeping woman who had been the center of her universe, and she felt nothing but a vast, empty pity. "No, Maya. You love the idea of me. You love the stability I provide, the home I designed, the life that makes you look successful. But you don't love me. You don't destroy the person you love. It's over." She walked to the hall closet and pulled out a suitcase. "Pack a bag. I want you out of this house tonight. Maya stared at her, aghast. You can't be serious. Where will I go? Frankly, I don't care, Alana said, her voice flat and final. Go to a hotel. Go to Chloe's. Your choice. But you are not sleeping in this house again. The finality in her tone finally broke through Maya's desperate manipulations. The fight drained out of her, replaced by a raw, pathetic desperation. She begged, she cried, she grabbed Alana's arm, but Alana was immovable. She was a granite statue of her own resolve. An hour later, Maya was gone, leaving behind a silence that was heavier and more absolute than any sound. Alone in the house that was suddenly just a house, Alana finally allowed herself to shatter. She slid down the wall, wrapped her arms around her knees, and wept for the woman she had loved, for the life she had lost, and for the fool she had been. The days that followed were a blur of brutal efficiency. Alana contacted a divorce attorney, a shark of a woman recommended by a friend, and handed over the external hard drive. The lawyer's eyes had widened as she scrolled through the evidence. Well, she'd said, a grim smile on her face. This will be quick, and it was. Faced with irrefutable proof of infidelity and financial deception, Maya had used their joint account to fund her affair. Maya's legal counsel advised her to settle immediately. Alana kept the house, the majority of their assets, and her dignity. The consequences for Maya cascaded with breathtaking speed. Alana's lawyer sent a carefully worded letter, along with select evidence, to the HR department of Maya's firm, detailing how a senior executive had used company resources and expense accounts for her affair with a freelance contractor, Chloe. Maya was fired within the week for gross misconduct. Chloe, upon learning that Maya was now jobless, homeless, and embroiled in a messy divorce, promptly vanished. The grand romance, it turned out, couldn't survive contact with reality. Their friends, upon hearing the full story, universally sided with Alana, leaving Maya socially isolated. Her own parents called Alana to apologize for their daughter's behavior. Within a month, Maya's entire life, so carefully curated for public consumption, had been demolished. Alana took no joy in it, but she felt a grim sense of cosmic justice. Actions have consequences. It was the most basic law of physics and of life. A year and a half later, Alana sat at an outdoor cafe in Ballard, the spring sun warm on her face. She had sold the Queen and house, its beautiful architecture tainted by ugly memories. She now lived in a sleek, minimalist loft overlooking the water, a space that was entirely her own. Her firm had won a major contract to design a new wing for the Seattle Art Museum, and her work had never been more fulfilling. She was lighter now, untethered from the weight of Maya's deceit. Across the table, a woman named Sarah, a landscape architect she'd been seeing for a few months, was telling a funny story about a difficult client. Alana was smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes. As Sarah paused to take a sip of her latte, Alana's gaze drifted across the street. And there she was. Maya. She was walking out of a drugstore, carrying a plastic bag. She looked diminished. Her clothes were nondescript, her hair lacked its usual expensive sheen, and there were tired lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. She looked up, and for a heart-stopping second, their eyes met across the bustling street. A flicker of panic, of shame, of desperate longing crossed Maya's face. She looked like she wanted to say something, to cross the street, to rewind time. Alana held her gaze for a moment that contained 12 years of history. There was no anger left, no hatred. There was only a quiet, profound finality. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture of acknowledgement, not invitation, and then she deliberately turned back to Sarah. She picked up her coffee cup, the ceramic warm in her hands. So, she said, her voice clear and steady. What did you tell the client who wanted a moat full of koi fish? Sarah laughed, and the sound mingled with the city noise, the seagulls, and the distant sound of a fairy horn. Alana smiled and felt the sun on her face, a new foundation taking hold, built not of steel or stone, but of self-respect. It was the strongest thing she had ever designed. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you can join us for the next one.